You're talking to the Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, kiss stealing, woo, wheeling, dealing, limousine riding, jet flying son of a gun. And I'm having a hard time holding these alligators down on Locked On Gators.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast. I'd like to thank LinkedIn Jobs for being the official college football recruiting sponsor across the Locked On College Network. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Terms and conditions apply. Happy Monday. I'm Brandon Olson. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find my written work with Whole Nine Sports and Giants Country of SI.com. Before getting into today's content, just going to say like, subscribe, comment, leave a nice review if you want to, or a mean one if you're a jerk. But go ahead, do whatever you want. Thanks to anybody that did join in on the multiple lives that we had this weekend with the commits. Also, fair warning, I'm recording this at about 5 p.m. on Sunday. If there's another commit, I'll go live, but I'm not going to re-record a whole episode. So we're going to talk about this, but we're going to start off today talking about Saturday's recruiting, because going into the weekend, we kind of knew that it was going to be a pretty big weekend for Florida football. Mainly because we were like, oh, Kelby Collins and Cameron James are both committing this weekend. They're both relatively favored to go to Florida, which is big for Florida, of course, because defensive line help was needed. Just any help was needed, really, but defensive line help was a spot where we really needed something there. And obviously both are defensive linemen. And this is a fun one. Kelby Collins committed on Saturday, four-star defensive lineman that, I mean, he's a weird one, because, not that he's weird, but it seemed like it was between Florida, South Carolina, and Bama. And then he goes to commit, and like the graphic on the screen and everything just shows Florida, Bama, and Georgia. So South Carolina was kind of gone from it, which is weird because, again, I was anticipating Florida, South Carolina, and Bama with an outside chance. No, Georgia was not happening, pretty sure. But even with all that, we still felt pretty confident that he'd be a Florida Gator at the end of the day. He is now the highest ranked commit for the Florida Gators in the 2023 recruiting class, so that cannot be overstated enough. Sean Spencer has now added his best player that he'll have in the 2023 recruiting class, and I don't think that Florida is even pursuing a higher ranked defensive lineman right now. So for now, Kelby Collins looks like he's going to end the year as the Florida Gators' highest ranked defensive lineman, which, again, huge news. I mean, he's a very high four-star player. He is an inside-out player, plays defensive end, going to be moving to defensive tackle at the next level, as John Garcia spoke about on Saturday morning's bonus episode of Locked On Gators, where he was like, hey, you know, Kelby Collins, he's a big dude. He's been playing D-end. He's going to play DT. Or he's going to be playing interior defensive line, which, again, in this defense, like Javon Dexter is playing defensive end, even though he's lining up in pretty much the same spot. That's kind of the same situation with Kelby Collins, where it's like, yeah, he's going to be, you know, defensive tackle, defensive end hybrid in this defense where people will move around a little bit and shift a little bit. I know that when I premiered my show and people were in the comments talking about it, that they're like, oh, well, Kelby Collins is still going to take a visit to Alabama. Don't rule out Nick Saban. Until anything is signed, we don't rule out anybody taking any player. I will say that, to my knowledge, the Alabama recruitment and the Alabama visit, it's more of a, I don't want to say courtesy. I feel like that's pretty bad. But it's more just like his dad wants him to do it, so he's going to do it to honor his dad's wishes right here. His dad looked pretty upset when he committed to Florida, but hey, take the L, Pops. Next up was Will Norman, who was a surprising commit on Saturday. Not because it's surprising that he committed to the Florida Gator. It's just the time that he committed was, we weren't really anticipating it. And this is something that we spoke about on, I believe, Wednesday or Thursday's episode of Locked On Gators, where we were like, hey, there's quite a few defensive linemen that Florida's making a play on. There's 2 of them with scheduled commitments this weekend. There's a few others where it's like, well, they already have 2 on board. They've got 2 scheduled. That would give them 4 for the year. How many are they really going to take? Will someone like Will Norman commit earlier and commit ahead of time or ahead of schedule just to secure his spot with this recruiting class? And that might have been the case. I am G-Kid, 4-star defensive lineman, and pretty much everything that John Garcia was saying for weeks now is Will Norman looks like he's going to be a Florida Gator. Like, they went to the IMG Media Day. Will Norman was wearing Florida Gator shorts. He went to Friday Night Lights after that media day. Will Norman was, taking players on tours of the new facilities, on tours of the old facilities, just tours of the campus and tours of the facility. And it's just like, this is something that you would do if you're planning on being a Gator. So maybe he was just like, I just don't want to commit yet and tie myself down. But he has committed yesterday. So I'm recording this Sunday. He committed Saturday. So that's a big add for the Florida Gators defensive line class. Again, another big defensive lineman that's added, second 4-star of the day. Blue Chip Billy continues doing his thing over there, because that's just something that Billy Napier and this coaching staff seem like they're going to do. They're just going to be like, hey, you're a 4-star? Come on down. Like, we're going to keep adding you. Will Norman, again, it wasn't surprising that he committed. It was just kind of surprising when he committed. Also a little irritating when he committed, because it's like, I literally just got on the road where I couldn't go live anymore. And he's like, oh, this will be inconvenient for Brandon. Boop. And so he did it. But yeah, Will Norman seems like he's very happy to be a Florida Gator. Kelby Collins seems like he's very happy to be a Florida Gator. I don't think either of them are necessarily flip candidates. But again, until the names are signed, I'm not counting anybody as completely done. So I'll say that. But yeah, we'll go with it how we can. We're about to take a look at Sunday recruiting and what's next for the Florida Gators. But first, a quick word from LinkedIn, because as the sun comes out and small businesses are back in business, LinkedIn Jobs makes it easier for you to grow your team. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the people that you want to interview faster and for free. If you've never used LinkedIn Jobs before, I highly recommend it. That's how I got my last job before I joined Locked On, which again, I love that job, but just like this one more. With simple tools like screening questions, it makes it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and potentially hire. Is why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number 1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates that you want to talk to faster. And did you know that nearly every week, 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. So Saturday was a big day. Yes, Kelby Collins committed, highest ranked commit in the class. Will Norman committed, I believe he's 4th highest ranked commit in the class. Sunday came around, well, actually on Saturday even before then, Miles Graham, a 2024 linebacker, 2024 4-star linebacker, was like, hey, committing Sunday at 1 p.m. And so, yeah, there's that, which we'll talk about. But Sunday, Cameron James committed at about 12:15 p.m. Thanks 24/7, by the way, for posting that he was going to commit at 2 o'clock, and then he committed 2 hours before that. I so greatly appreciate that. I greatly appreciate that. Thank you. Always accurate. Yeah, I'm going for him. Cameron James, 4-star defensive lineman that, depending on where you look, he's a major player or he's just a pretty dang good player. According to On3, Cameron James, 4-star defensive lineman, yes, top 25 player in the country. I believe he's number 23 on On3, which is wild when you look at 24/7, and Cameron James is, I believe, 221, and he changed that spot the morning, as in Saturday morning, like the morning before his commitment, like that, the day before. So Saturday, he suddenly changed his spot, dropped quite a few spots, but yeah, again, I don't necessarily care about each individual ranking. It's just a matter of, who's lagging behind. We'll see if 24/7 is too low or if On3 is too high. I feel like there's no middle ground there when you're like, oh, top 25, top 230. I feel like it's definitely got to be closer towards one of those options, right? But again, 24/7 still has him as a 4-star player. It's just, not a super high 4-star player, whereas On3 has him as a top 25 player in the country. Do with that information what you will. Florida beat out Georgia for this commitment, and John Garcia even spoke about it, and we spoke about it on yesterday morning when we had a bonus episode previewing the Cameron James commitment, where it's like, hey, Cameron James is a very good player from a relatively small school, relatively bad school in terms of athletics, relatively bad school in Olympia. And so it's like those schools get overlooked because you can only look at so many schools where if there's, one bad school with one good player as opposed to multiple good schools with multiple players that it's like, oh, well, will they actually get on the field until their senior year, whatever it might be? When you look at it's a lot easier to look at a good school with good players than it is to look at a bad school with one good player, is my point. And even yesterday, I shared the anecdote with John that I went to a bad school in a bad football state, New York. I went to a bad high school, bad football state, and I was a bad player on that team. But I had one teammate go D1. More than one should have gone D1, but no one wants to look at the bad schools with just one good player. It's not worth the trip usually. So I understand that. I'm not complaining about it. I'm just saying I understand what that's like. So it's interesting with Cameron James making kind of a late rise and teams making a late push for him. That first of all, that he didn't want to drag out this recruitment, that he was like, hey, I kind of know where I want to go. And he became a Florida Gator, but also that there's a lot of kids that are going to go under the radar and get completely missed here. And we'll just hope that that Billy Napier and staff can kind of find the slept on players, we'll say. Then about 45 minutes after Cameron James committed, Myles Graham committed to the Florida Gators. And Myles Graham, who I just mentioned, 2024 4-star linebacker. He's the first commit for the Florida Gators in the 2024 class. And like I mentioned also when Myles Graham did commit, that I was like, hey, there's quite a few names that you should probably be paying attention to if you're a Florida Gators fan and you want to talk about this 2022 class or this 2024 class that's 2 years out now, because Myles is the first name in what will hopefully be many names for the Florida Gators here. But there's also DJ Lagway, the quarterback who Florida's been pushing for. There's Davi Belfort, who Florida's been pushing for. There's edge rusher Elijah Rushing, who his brother Cruz Rushing is a Florida defensive back. He's a freshman this year. Defensive lineman Kendall Jackson. So Florida's already pushing for a lot of these guys, and they've got traction. Myles Graham, the one who did commit, committed over, I believe it was Ohio State, Michigan State, Alabama, Auburn, and Texas A&M. And I believe there was one more because Florida's sixth school. I believe there were 7 initially, and then he dropped 2 schools like last week. But over those schools in very recent times. But he is Ernest Graham's son, fourth career leading rusher for the Florida Gators. 8-year career with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Very, very great Florida legend. And yeah, so Myles Graham is going to be a Florida Gator. Ernest Graham put out a nice little tweet where he just said, we couldn't be happier with how this worked out. But also Myles Graham, yes, he's a 4-star, but I mean, at the time of recording this, unless rankings change anywhere, Myles Graham has a higher rating on 24/7 than any 2023 commits for the Florida Gators. Myles Graham also puts the Florida Gators as the number 13 class in 2024 early on. So that's a big change there. And that's just huge. Right behind Ohio State, right ahead of Miami and Michigan State. So Florida making some quick strides there. And like I said it yesterday when I went live after the commitment. I was talking to someone at a Power 5 school earlier this morning that said they stopped pursuing him recently. And the quote was because Florida seems to have taken a substantial lead. So Florida was kind of in the running for this. They really separated recently, and other teams kind of had to get out the way. But Florida making another big move and another great ad for this 2024 class, the first ad, and Billy Napier and staff are really they're just hitting the ground running with 2024. We're about to talk about what's next for the Florida Gators in terms of recruiting. But first, quick word from Built Bar, because summertime is over, unfortunately, or just about over, right? 2 weeks left. It's basically over. And whether you're trying to maintain the summer body, early start for next year, whatever it might be, just trying to bulk up, whatever it might be, make sure to include Built Bar in your diet. I have a horrible sweet tooth. I do. Shake Money, I know that you wanted the salt caramel one and you wanted an opinion on it, and my opinion is I love anything caramel. So yes, get it. But yeah, I have a horrible sweet tooth, but luckily for me, Built Bar is coated in 100% chocolate. Most bars have just 130 calories, just 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. You can't miss out with that one, really. And Built Bar is always coming out with new limited time flavors too, so that you will never get bored. Use promo code LOCKEDON15 to get 15% off of your next order. That's a new code, locked on, LOCKEDON15, to get 15% off of your next order with Built or BuiltBar.com. To wrap up today's show, we're talking about what's next for the Florida Gators in the 2023 recruiting class, because obviously they've started putting plenty of attention on 2024, as they should have. I'm sure their list for 2023 is a very small list at this point for who they're still in play for. But we're going to see what happens, because offensive lineman is a big need, obviously, still for the Florida Gators. Rob Sale's the next coach we're hoping steps up, because, it seems like every time we question someone, they step up. We question Billy Napier, and we're like, it's going to be difficult for him to get a quarterback. Marcus Stokes. We question... Not really. I feel like people didn't really question Kerry Colbert or Corey Raymond, but people question Patrick Toney, Jordan Castell next week. People question Sean Spencer. He did what he did this week. Coach Chaos, more like Coach Domination of the middle of the defensive line there. Added a ton of talent. Now it's time to shift. And even Coach Jay Bateman. You could talk about questioning him. He flipped Jaden Robinson from South Carolina. He added Myles Graham for 2024. He's still got work to do this year, but, he's kind of taking the heat off himself a little bit. Offensive line, you're next, Rob Sale. Simple as that. Rob Sale, Darnell Stapleton, you're next, because, yes, while myself and many other Gators media and Gators fans love Najee Harris and Bryce Lovett, you need more than 2 offensive linemen for this class. Offensive linemen, I would right now, I'd put my focus on Monroe Freeling. He is, I think, one of the highest ranked offensive tackles available. Not even I think, I know he's one of the highest ranked offensive tackles still available and still uncommitted. Monroe Freeling is someone that you really have to apply pressure for if you're the Florida Gators. And like John Garcia was talking about, if this takes longer, it's better for Florida. It gives them more time. And I think with Rob Sale, Darnell Stapleton, and even Billy Napier, I think you've really got to start applying pressure on Monroe Freeling. Another name to look out for Florida Gators fans, Lucas Simmons, who Florida was in the runnings for, and then he committed to Florida State. With Chris Parson gone from Florida State, no quarterback ready for them right now. Things aren't looking fantastic for Florida State. If they have another rough year, you're possibly looking at Mike Norvell getting fired, which means that a lot of this recruiting class could decommit. Florida should remain in contact with Lucas Simmons, just in case he wants to decommit for any reason, whether it's because they suck, whether it's because he wakes up from whatever drug they gave him to make him want to be a Seminole, which is just horrible. Whatever it is, keep in touch with Lucas Simmons. Looking at linebacker, Pup Howard is someone that we're obviously looking for Florida Gators. We just took a South Carolina linebacker. Why not take another in Pup Howard? Also, yesterday he tweeted, I think it was, "Hey, Gamecock fans, get me to 4K." And someone was like, "Florida can get you to 5." And he said, "All right, prove it." So we'll see what happens with that. But he's clearly flirting with stuff. We'll see what actually happens at the end in the long run, but something to keep an eye on with Pup Howard. Also, for linebacker, any 4-star linebacker that is already committed for Blue Chip Billy to flip. Because like I've said before, this man, one hand is a spatula. He is the hash slinging slasher, and that is what it is. By the way, yesterday was the 23-year anniversary since the start of Krusty Krab Pizza. That's incredibly important. While we're making SpongeBob references, why not do it? Who cares? Why not? That's where we're at. And defensive back is something to keep an eye on still, because yes, Florida has added an absurd amount of talent in the defensive backfield at the secondary. But Florida's still very much in on two pretty high-ranking recruits in Cormani McClain, who SI 99, number 2 overall player in the nation, number 1 corner in the nation. And it's not super close, but, John Garcia was here on Friday talking about him. He's like, look, Cormani, like, he doesn't have the polish, but he's got all the tools. He's got the athleticism, the ball skills. And we were like, hey, imagine pairing him with Corey Raymond, how awesome that would be, which is what I would imagine the main selling point is for this Florida Gators coaching staff right now is look at how good you are with not a ton of technique. Imagine how good you can be if we work with you. And then also Dijon Johnson, who was committed to Ohio State, decommitted. I believe that there's some family stuff going on that I won't spread rumors and participate in that gossip, but there's some family stuff going on that could lead to him maybe wanting to stay closer to home, maybe wanting to go to Ohio State as long as they set him up right, whatever it might be. Florida's been pushing on him, and Florida's, been the leader for him since even before he decommitted. People were like, he's going to decommit and flip to Florida. So we'll see what happens with that, but I think that's one of the things where you can never have too many good defensive backs. Cream of the crop will rise to the top, and it's as simple as that. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll be back tomorrow with more on your Florida Gators football team. Maybe we'll talk about the scrimmage, which I do have a little bit of a snippet from you, but we'll talk about stuff. Now make your second listen Locked On SEC, hosted by Chris Gordy of Sports 790. Get the best coverage on the best conference, including the best football team and best university, the University of Florida. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olson. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Whole Nine Sports and Giants Country of SI.com, and I'll see you all tomorrow.